Her son and daughter-in-law laughed when she scratched her lottery ticket at brunch. Elaine Foster, their mother and former doormat, just smiled and waited. Months later, the lien on their house belonged to her. She'd raised them, fed them, forgave them. Now she was billing Themat full emotional interest, because this time, Mom came with a legal team and a notarized plan. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The brunch was Elaine's idea, though everyone treated it like an obligation. She chose the Bistro Verde downtown, partly for the polite service, mostly for its cinnamon brioche French toaster, late husband's favorite. The table was already set when she arrived, early as always. She placed a small white envelope next to her water glass, then smoothed out the creases in her navy cardigan. Travis and Rachel showed up 12 minutes late, Travis texting as he sat, Rachel immediately asking if the eggs were cage-free. Miles shuffled in 5 minutes later, apologizing breathlessly, hair uncombed, paint smudged on the inside of his wrist. "Sorry, Mom," he said, kissing the top of her head. Late night in the studio. Elaine smiled. Still creating, that's what matters. Lily was last, but only by a minute, slipping into the chair next to Elaine like a breeze through a cracked window. She hugged her grandma tightly and reached for the menu with one hand, still clasping Elaine's fingers with the other. Conversation drifted like lukewarm coffee. Vacation plans, traffic near Bardstown Road, the cost of gas. Elaine mostly listened. Travis, in a sport coat he clearly thought made him look younger, started reciting something about interest rates. "You still keeping that little teacher's pension afloat, Mom?" Rachel asked, cutting into her avocado toast with robotic precision. Elaine's gaze didn't flinch. "It's enough to keep me fed." Travis leaned forward, fork in hand. "Let me know if you ever want to explore more aggressive options." She just nodded. "Of course." Then, as casually as pulling out a grocery list, Elaine slid the envelope across the table and opened it to reveal a scratch ticket. Rachel chuckled, no warmth, just condescension. "Still holding out for magic money, Mom?" Miles gave a sheepish laugh. "Come on, you're too smart for that stuff." Elaine didn't answer. She simply smiled and tucked the unscratched ticket into her wallet, right beside an old family photo, Thanksgiving, 2003. Everyone younger, smiling for real. Lily leaned over and kissed her cheek. "I hope you win something big." Elaine met her eyes. "So do I, sweetheart. So do I." That night, the kitchen smelled like lemon balm and old wood. Rain tapped lightly on the windows, not enough to be urgent, just enough to be noticed. Gloria sat at the opposite end of the table, sipping from a chipped mug of herbal tea. She'd known Elaine since the Carter administration and knew better than to ask why the envelope had reappeared between them, now opened. Elaine peeled back the silver scratch film with the corner of a paring knife, slow and precise. "You ever notice," she said softly, "how people only laugh when they think you've already lost?" Gloria raised an eyebrow. "Some people laugh so they don't choke on their own smug." The first number, 12. The second, 12. Gloria leaned in. "Well now." The third, 12. They both stared at the card. Silence stretched across the laminate table like fog. Elaine stood, walked to the sink, and rinsed the knife. Her hands didn't shake, not even a little. Gloria held the ticket delicately, like it might burn through her palm. "3 matches." Elaine nodded. "3. And the prize field is sealed. Gonna scratch it?" "No," Elaine said, drying her hands. "Not yet." Outside, the rain thickened, splashing down onto the garden boxes Elaine had built herself the spring after Harold died. She walked back to the table, slid the ticket into a new envelope, sealed it with a press of her thumb, and tucked it into the recipe box labeled casseroles. Gloria blinked. "That's your next move?" Elaine pulled the kettle off the burner. "Everyone laughed today, Glo. Every single one of them." Gloria swirled the last of her tea, studying Elaine's face. "Not Lily." Elaine looked up, a small smile playing on her lips. Number not Lily. There was a new light in her eyes now, not joy exactly. Something deeper, older, determined. The wind picked up outside, tugging the rain sideways against the glass. Elaine sat down, took a sip of her tea, and stared into the quiet. Then, almost as an afterthought, she asked, "Do you remember who Harold used to bank with?" Gloria paused, then nodded slowly. "Sure do." Elaine opened the recipe box and removed the envelope. Good. Because tomorrow, we start being taken seriously. The lottery office didn't look like the kind of place where lives changed. It was tucked between a bail bonds storefront and a shuttered dry cleaner, with a sun-faded poster of fireworks in the window and a buzzer on the door that let out a sad little beep when Elaine stepped inside. The carpet was stained. The air smelled faintly of old toner and microwaved noodles. She clutched the envelope tightly in her purse. Daryl King sat behind a half-frosted window marked Claims and Validation, tapping a pen against his clipboard. He was in his early 50s, clean-shaven with an easy stillness about him, like a man who'd seen too many people scream over checks they never expected. When he called her name, he didn't even blink at her age, didn't ask who bought the ticket, didn't smirk. Instead, he led her to a side room soundproofed, camera-equipped, silent, the kind of place built for either heartbreak or hysteria. Elaine handed him the ticket. Her hands didn't shake, still. Daryl examined it under a UV light, logged the serial number, and then looked up. "Well," he said, voice low, "that's the number." Elaine let out a quiet breath. "You'd like to know the prize field, I assume?" She nodded. He peeled back the final strip with a plastic blade. When he turned the card toward her, Elaine didn't flinch, just counted the zeros and filed the number away like she would a student's test score. Daryl sat back. "You're the calmest winner I've seen in 15 years. Old math teachers are hard to rattle. Do you want the lump sum or the annuity?" "Lump, as quiet as it can be." He blinked once, but nodded. "There are legal channels to delay press release for up to 180 days. You'll need a privacy petition and a formal legal rep." "I have both," Elaine said, pulling out a leather folder. "Started the paperwork yesterday." He smiled, just a little. "You planned this." "No," she said evenly. "I prepared." By the following afternoon, she and Gloria were seated across from a lawyer in a sleek downtown office with more glass than walls. His name was Spencer Garrison, former estate litigator turned discreet advisor for high net worth restructures, as his plaque said. Elaine wore a pressed blazer and a small pearl pin she hadn't touched in years. Gloria, despite looking like she'd just left a quilting bee, carried herself like a bodyguard. Spencer reviewed the documents she'd already had notarized Adelia's trust under Margaret Lane. Separate beneficiary terms, no digital footprints. "And the company name?" he asked. Elaine tapped a yellow legal pad. "Foster House Revival, LLC." Gloria grinned. "Catchy. Sounds like a home renovation show." Elaine didn't smile. "It will be." Spencer leaned back. "You've thought through everything." "I've been underestimated for decades, Mr. Garrison. This time, I'm walking in with the blueprints." He drafted the LLC registration, directed the funds into a specialized safety deposit structure, and set up off-site document custody. No leaks, no names. Before they left, Gloria turned to Elaine at the elevator. "So now what?" Elaine pressed the down button. "Now, we start building quietly." Gloria's mouth twitched. "Let the games begin." That evening, Elaine made herself a cup of peppermint tea and sat at her kitchen table, reviewing the binder Spencer had handed her. Legalese, tax protections, fund dispersal schedule it was all familiar, in the way solving a difficult equation used to feel. Only this time, she wasn't teaching it, she was using it. Her landline rang. Only a few people still called that number. "Hello?" "Hey, Mom." Travis's voice, smooth as ever. "Just checking in. Wanted to see if you needed anything, financially, I mean." Elaine stared out the window at the porch Harold had built with his own hands. "I'm fine," she said. "You sure? Interest rates are rough. If anything's getting tight, I could take a look restructure some things for you." "Appreciate the offer," Elaine said evenly. "But I already have someone looking after things." "Oh?" There was a pause, his tone cooling. "Who?" Elaine let the silence breathe for a beat too long, then, gently, "Someone who doesn't laugh when I speak." The line went quiet. She could almost picture him leaning against the kitchen island in his open floor plan house, brow furrowed, wondering if she'd just insulted him or simply lost her mind. "Okay, well, I'm here if you need me," he said, a little too flat. "Of course," she replied sweetly. "That's what families are for." She hung up before he could say anything else. Then, from the back of the house, she heard a soft knock. She turned. It was Lily, holding a mason jar of daisies and a notebook. Elaine blinked. Everything all right, honey? Lily hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you keep everything so quiet? Even when you win? Something? Elaine gestured her in, voice steady. Because quiet things grow best when no one's digging them up. Lily nodded slowly, eyes sharp for 16. Elaine glanced down at the binder again, her fingers resting gently on the embossed cover. Outside, the wind shifted. Elaine parked, across the street from the house she used to call home. The maple tree out front had outgrown the lawn, roots buckling the sidewalk. She remembered planting it the year Miles turned 5. Now, its limbs stretched wide and overbearing, too big for the small yard, too heavy for the brittle roofline beneath it. She stepped out of her car slowly, hands in the pockets of her light jacket. No need to announce herself. Across the lawn, the house sagged under its own neglect. The porch rail white painted once. Now a splintered gray was cracked in 2 places. Gutters hung at odd angles like crooked smiles. A cracked flower pot sat upside down by the steps. No flowers. Elaine stood at the curb for a long moment, watching the wind ruffle the weeds growing between the bricks. She noted every detail. She always had. A shadow moved behind the sheer curtain in the living room window. She didn't flinch. If Rachel was home, she wasn't coming out. Not yet. Elaine turned back toward her car and drove off without knocking. The clerk at the Jefferson County Recorder's office wore a ponytail and a look of mild boredom, but when Elaine laid out the parcel number and asked for the full lien history, the young woman perked up. Are you with the bank? Foster House Revival, Elaine replied smoothly, sliding over a card. We're reviewing community redevelopment opportunities. The clerk tapped a few keys, squinted at the screen. Well, you've got 3 home equity liens on the property. 2 are active. One's in pre-default. Elaine leaned closer. Dates? She wrote them down as the clerk rattled them off. Refinance in 2018. Again in 2021. 3rd loan just last year. All secured under Travis and Rachel's names. All stacked against the equity in the house Elaine and Harold had paid off 20 years ago. The clerk printed the documents, all public record, and placed them in a manila folder. Looks like the second lien holder's looking to offload the debt. You might get a discount if you move fast. Elaine offered a quiet smile. Oh, I always move fast when I know what I'm buying. The office of McKinley and Sons Lending sat in a strip mall next to a nail salon. The owner, a ruddy-faced man with the tan lines of a weekend golfer, barely glanced at her card. You're offering to purchase the lien? Without seeing the collateral? Elaine shrugged. I've seen enough. You'd take the whole balance? If we agree to the discount I know you're about to offer. He tilted his head. You, a lawyer? Number. I'm a retired math teacher. I believe in knowing what numbers are worth. They settled before his coffee cooled. He didn't ask who was on the other end of the deal. She didn't offer. Foster House Revival signed the lien transfer electronically. The house her husband built was now pinned beneath her quiet leverage. Lily showed up that evening just after 7, her backpack thudding softly on the kitchen floor. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, earbuds dangling from her hoodie pocket. You hungry? Elaine asked, without turning from the stove. Lily shook her head, plopping into a chair. We had pizza after practice. Extra greasy. Coach called it team bonding, but I think he just forgot to buy groceries. Elaine set 2 mugs of chamomile tea on the table anyway. Lily's fingers toyed with the steam rising from hers. You remember what next week is? Elaine sipped her tea, eyes warm. Of course. My birthday, Lily said, in a way that was half challenge, half hope. 16.5 years of me being your favorite, right? Elaine chuckled. 16 years of you being the only one who actually listens. Lily smiled, then looked away, fingers tracing circles on the rim of the cup. Can I stay over Friday night? Travis and Rachel are doing that retreat thing again, and... Elaine didn't let her finish. Of course, sweetheart. I'll have your favorite sheets washed. Lily leaned her head on Elaine's shoulder. Thanks, Grandma, for still being you. Elaine rested her cheek on Lily's hair and closed her eyes for just a second. She didn't answer, but her fingers tightened around the mug. That night, long after Lily had gone to bed, Elaine sat in the study with the lien documents spread before her like a chessboard. She traced her name well, her alias at the bottom of the purchase agreement. The ink had barely dried. The house Travis thought he controlled was now one missed payment away from her pocket. She flipped to the payment schedule. The next due date was in 11 days, and she had no plans to let it pass unnoticed. The restaurant was too trendy for Elaine's taste-whitewashed brick walls, Edison bulbs dangling from copper pipes, and a menu that described chicken as locally emotional. She would have preferred Lily's birthday to be celebrated at home, maybe with a homemade cake and Harold's old jazz records playing in the background. But Rachel had insisted. "It's what teenagers like now," she'd said. "Urban, Instagram, friendly." Elaine had quietly paid for Lily's dress light blue, vintage-inspired, not Rachel's pick. Lily had smiled wide when she tried it on. That was enough. Now the Foster family filled a long reclaimed wood table in the private room, under a chalkboard sign that read, "Happy Sweet 16, Lily," in cursive handwriting someone had clearly been paid to fake. Lily sat in the middle, glowing under soft light, trying to navigate the split between her dad's stiff pride and her grandma's quiet warmth. Elaine sat at the far end of the table, next to Gloria, who had brought her signature gift, a stack of used books tied in twine and an envelope. She slid the envelope discreetly under Elaine's napkin when no one was watching. Travis raised his wineglass halfway through the meal. "To Lily," he said with the kind of performative charm that made Gloria roll her eyes. "You've got your whole future ahead of you, and thanks to some smart financial moves, we're building one hell of a foundation." Elaine didn't respond. She buttered a roll slowly, methodically. Rachel reached across the table and tapped Elaine's hand, holding up a folded bill. "Oh, by the way, Mom, can you cover the caterer's final invoice? They wanted a check tonight. You know, since you've got that steady pension." Elaine blinked once, then reached into her bag without a word. She pulled out a checkbook, careful to peel off the top carbon copy so Rachel couldn't see what else she'd written recently. She scribbled out the amount, $528.74, plus tip-signed it, Elaine M. Foster, and slid it across the table. "Thank you," Rachel said flatly, as if the exchange were expected automatic. Elaine just nodded and sipped her water. "Of course, happy to." Dessert arrived, tiny cupcakes on a wooden board with artisanal lettering done in icing. Lily leaned over to Elaine and whispered, "Can we get ice cream on the way home? These are cute, but—" Elaine grinned. "We'll hit Grater's before they close. Mint chip, right?" Lily winked. "You know me." Then Gloria leaned in and tapped Elaine's wrist under the table. "Now," she whispered. Elaine gave a small, nearly imperceptible nod. Gloria reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope brown, unmarked, except for a gold paperclip, and slid it across the table with the same finesse one might use to deal a playing card. Elaine placed it quietly between the salt shaker and her glass, pretending to adjust her napkin. Travis noticed. "What's that?" he asked, reaching for it. Elaine pulled it back with the calm of a seasoned dealer in a high-stakes poker game. "Just a little paperwork," she said, tucking it back into her purse. "Nothing urgent." Then it happened. Travis's phone buzzed on the table. One vibration, then another, then three more in quick succession. He picked it up mid-laugh, glanced at the screen, and the color drained from his face. Rachel leaned toward him. "What is it?" He said nothing, just scrolled, lips moving silently, eyes darting. Rachel tried to snatch the phone. "Travis, what? Is it?" He held the screen up, still pale. "Foreclosure notice. From a lender I've never heard of." Elaine took a small bite of her cupcake, nodded to Gloria, and dabbed the corner of her mouth with a cloth napkin. Lily looked between them. "Grandma, did you?" Elaine met her eyes and smiled gently. "Don't let it ruin your night, sweetheart. Not everyone's gifts come wrapped." Gloria chuckled softly under her breath. "I told you cake's better when served cold." Rachel stood abruptly, chair scraping loud against the concrete floor. "What the hell is going on?" Elaine folded her napkin, set it beside her plate. "Just some numbers catching up to people. That happens sometimes." She stood, offering her hand to Lily. "Ice cream?" Lily looked around the table at her mother's narrowed eyes, her father's stunned silence, and then took her grandmother's hand without hesitation. "Let's go." They walked out into the cool Louisville night, the door closing behind them with a soft chime. Elaine heard the tires before she saw the car. It tore into her gravel driveway like it had something to prove, wheels, spitting dust, headlights still on despite the morning sun. Travis's silver BMW screeched to a stop just shy of her garden bed, the tulips trembling in the wake. She didn't move from the porch swing, just set her mug down gently on the side table and folded her hands. Travis stormed toward her, suit jacket unbuttoned, tie flapping like a flag of impending war. "You did this!" he snapped, not bothering with hello. Elaine met his fury with calm. "Did what?" His hands sliced through the air. "Don't," he huffed, pacing. "Don't play coy, Mom. The foreclosure notice, the lien, foster house something. That's you, isn't it?" Elaine waited a moment. "Yes." The word landed like a slap. Travis blinked. "You bought the lien on my house?" She corrected him. "The house I built with your father. The house you borrowed against 3 times and nearly lost twice. Yes, I secured the primary lien. Weeks ago." He stared at her, chest heaving. "And," she added, "the repayment deadline passed yesterday." His voice sharpened. "You can't do this. It's illegal. You used a shell company. That's it's the word fraud. I'll sue." Behind him, a door creaked. Gloria stepped out of Elaine's kitchen holding a manila envelope, the same one from the birthday dinner, this time opened and annotated. She looked unimpressed by the drama. "Already checked with 2 attorneys," she said, descending the porch steps. "You signed the original mortgage disclosures. This is legal, clean, and airtight." She handed the envelope to Travis, who yanked it open and scanned the first page, eyes darting, panic rising. Elaine stood now, slowly, like the shift in weight meant something more. "I don't want your house, Travis. I want you to understand what happens when you treat people like they're disposable." He looked up, jaw clenched. "You'd kick your own son out?" "No," she said. "I'm offering you options." Travis's laugh was hollow. "Options? You can rent. Or move." She paused. "But that house is no longer yours to ruin." From the edge of the driveway, another car pulled in Miles's ancient Toyota, paint flaking, back seat cluttered with canvases and crumpled receipts. He climbed out slowly, like he wasn't sure he'd been invited. "What's going on?" he asked, approaching with hesitant steps. Gloria raised a brow. "Family finances." Travis turned on him. "She's evicting us, Miles. Mom bought our lien and now she's kicking me and Rachel out of the house. Can you believe this?" Miles looked from Travis to Elaine. "Is that true?" Elaine didn't blink. "It is." Silence stretched between them like a taut rope. Miles rubbed the back of his neck, eyes heavy with the weight of too many years being stuck in the middle. "I thought you hated confrontation," Travis snapped. "Guess that skips generations." Miles said nothing. The front door creaked again. Lily stood on the porch now, wrapped in one of Elaine's old cardigans, her hair still wet from a shower. She looked impossibly young and unshakably awake. She spoke softly. "Did you do this on purpose?" Elaine turned to her granddaughter, her voice gentle. "I did it carefully." Travis scoffed. "Oh, come on." But Lily didn't look away. "Grandma," she said again, quieter now. "Did you plan this?" Elaine walked up the porch steps, placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. "I planned to stop being used. That's different." For a beat, no one moved. The spring air buzzed with insects and tension. Travis stared at Elaine like he no longer recognized her. "You always told us family was everything." "I did," she said. "And now I'm making sure what's left of it survives." Gloria cleared her throat. "You might want to check page 5, Travis. Rental terms are generous, assuming you act like a tenant and not a tyrant." He didn't reach for the page. Elaine stepped past him toward her garden, stooping to pull a weed from between 2 stones. Her hands were steady. Her roots were deep. Behind her, the screen door slammed as Lily walked back inside without saying another word. The building looked like it had been beautiful ones back, when Louisville's Butchertown district still smelled like iron and ambition. Now, it was mostly aging brick and weather-stained murals, tucked between a decommissioned loading dock and a thrift store no one seemed to run. Elaine climbed the creaking stairwell to the 3rd floor, heels clicking against concrete polished down by decades. At the top, a crooked hand-painted sign read, Fosterworks Studio. The S in Fosterworks had started peeling. She knocked once. Inside, something crashed to the floor. A beat passed. Then Miles opened the door with streaks of charcoal on both forearms and the look of a man who hadn't slept through the night in weeks. "Mom?" I was in the neighborhood. Miles stepped aside, letting her in without question. The studio was colder than she expected. Bare windows leaked afternoon light onto canvases lined up along the back wall and finished work in every size. Some brilliant, some angry, some heartbreakingly lonely. A space heater buzzed uselessly near a stack of flattened Amazon boxes. His coffee table had paint-stained invoices strewn across it. His easel sat empty. Elaine took a slow look around. No heat? Building's old, Miles said, scratching the back of his neck. They fixed it 2 weeks ago, didn't take. She walked to a canvas propped in the corner, portrait of a man standing at a cracked sidewalk, face turned away. Harold? She asked softly. Miles nodded. Never finished it. Didn't feel honest. Elaine turned. Neither did the man he became at the end. He exhaled through his nose, leaning against the workbench. You didn't come here to talk about Dad. No, she admitted. I came to talk about Travis. Miles gave a hollow laugh. Of course. She stepped closer. Is it true he cut you off? He looked up, surprised. I saw the bills, she added, gesturing to the table. And I know Travis doesn't help unless he controls the outcome. Miles shook his head. I borrowed money from him 6 months ago to cover studio rent. Told him I'd pay him back when I sold the gallery series. I didn't. Because you couldn't? Because he threatened to tell Lily I was irresponsible. He said it'd shake her hero worship. Miles looked away. So I let the deal go cold. Told him to forget it. Lost a couple commissions after that. Got behind on rent. Elaine looked down at her folded hands. And your landlord? Ready to kick me out, he muttered. End of the month. Can't blame him. Elaine took a breath, then reached into her bag and pulled out a folded lease agreement and a certified cashier's check. Miles frowned. What is that? Your new lease. 1 year. Paid in advance. Through Foster House Revival. He blinked. You what? She handed him the paperwork, letting him read the letterhead. His eyes scanned the details, confused, cautious. You paid it off? He asked quietly. Yes. He looked up, voice cracking. Why are you helping me? Elaine didn't hesitate. Because you never laughed. Miles stared at her like he wanted to cry and couldn't quite remember how. I didn't side with you either, he whispered. No, she said. But you stayed human. They stood there for a long time, in the kind of silence only family can hold, the kind that remembers birthdays even when no one shows up. He finally sat down at the workbench, resting the papers in front of him. You don't owe me this. Elaine walked toward the door. You're right. She stopped just before leaving. But maybe I wanted one of my children to know what loyalty actually feels like. Outside, the sun dipped behind the water tower. Streetlights buzzed to life one by one like secrets lighting up a neighborhood. Miles looked at the lease again, fingers brushing the edge. Then he turned to his easel, grabbed a fresh canvas, and pulled it into the light. The Jefferson County Courthouse looked like it had been built to intimidate all windows, dull marble, a silence broken only by the clicking of shoes and the low murmur of legal lives being sorted, one case at a time. Elaine walked in beside Gloria, who carried her purse like a briefcase and wore a cardigan with shoulder pads that hadn't been in style since the first Bush administration but somehow still radiated authority. Elaine had dressed in a charcoal gray blazer and flats, her binder clutched tight under one arm. Room 3B, Gloria muttered, checking the docket. Judge Halverson. Bench trial. Should be over by lunch if she doesn't stall. I brought everything, Elaine said softly. Of course you did. They found the courtroom half full. The buzz of whispered voices quieted as they entered. Rachel sat at the petitioner's table, wearing an all-black pantsuit and a pair of oversized sunglasses that made her look less like a grieving victim and more like a soap opera villain who just survived a yacht explosion. Her attorney, a smug young man with slicked-back hair and too much cologne, leaned in to whisper something. Rachel nodded without looking. Elaine and Gloria took their place at the respondent's table. Across the aisle, Rachel finally removed her sunglasses. Her glare was sharp, venomous. She really thought we wouldn't show, Gloria muttered. God, I love disappointing people like that. A bailiff called for quiet. The judge entered Hahn. Rebecca Halverson, early 60s, tired eyes, hair pinned back without fuss. She sat, adjusted her glasses, and looked at the file in front of her. Case number 27, CV 482. Rachel Foster, Plaintiff versus Elaine Foster, defendant. Allegations of harassment and malicious financial interference. Is the plaintiff prepared? Rachel's attorney stood, buttoned his jacket, and launched into a tidy monologue about undue emotional distress, coercion by way of financial manipulation, and a sudden, targeted vendetta from an elderly family member who recently came into unexplained wealth. Elaine said nothing. She waited. The judge looked unimpressed. Do you have any material evidence, Mr. Linton? Witness statements, Your Honor? No physical documentation. No texts? Emails? Recordings? He cleared his throat. Number. Proceed. Rachel stood, overly composed. She's been tormenting us, using some fake company to buy our debts. She tricked the system. She embarrassed us. She's trying to ruin our lives. Judge Halverson looked at Elaine. Mrs. Foster? Elaine rose. Your Honor, I have documentation showing that my son Travis used my identity and former pension account as collateral on 2 loans he never repaid. I have notarized affidavits, bank statements, and a letter from my financial advisor confirming unauthorized activity. These documents were provided voluntarily and without subpoena. She opened the binder and handed the packet to the bailiff. The judge flipped through it with a raised brow. Additionally, Elaine continued, I purchase a lien on a property through a legally formed LLC. All transactions were registered with the state and disclosed to relevant parties. There was no fraud, no harassment, just accountability. Judge Halverson closed the folder. Mrs. Foster, how long were you a teacher? 32 years, Your Honor. Public schools? Yes. Math, primarily. The judge gave a slow nod. I bet your students never got away with much. Elaine smiled. Just barely. Not often. Judge Halverson turned to Rachel. You've provided no material evidence of harassment. What I do see is a paper trail that suggests financial abuse of the defendant. If I were you, Miss Foster, I'd tread very carefully before stepping back into this courtroom. She banged the gavel. Case dismissed. Defendant is free to go. Rachel stood abruptly, her chair clattering to the floor. She grabbed her bag and stormed out without another word. Her attorney trailed behind, already looking for his next escape. Gloria leaned over and whispered. That was deeply satisfying. Elaine's phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out. Secure message. Trust maturity confirmed. Full disbursement available. Contact Daryl for next steps. Elaine stared at the screen. Everything was in motion now. No more waiting. No more leverage. Full access. Gloria peered at the message. That from Daryl? Elaine nodded. Well then, Gloria grinned. Time to buy something big. Elaine closed the binder with a soft snap. Time to build something bigger. The first property Elaine bought sat 4 houses down from Travis and Rachel's 2-bedroom brick ranch, boarded windows, foreclosure sign half faded, lawn overtaken by dandelions and defeat. By the end of the week, it was stripped, clean junk hauled, fence pressure washed, and a fresh coat of paint on the trim. Not to restore it, to open it. Elaine stood in the middle of the backyard on a cool Saturday morning, sleeves rolled, shovel in hand. Her boots sank into soft dirt as Lily kneeled nearby, placing starter herbs into fresh topsoil basil. Mint. A row of green onions marked with tiny, handwritten stakes. You sure you want lavender and tomatoes? Lily asked, brushing soil off her hands. Elaine nodded. Lavender keeps pests away. Tomatoes like company. Just like people. Lily smirked. You sound like my bio teacher. Good, Elaine said. That means you're learning. Behind them, Gloria arrived with a crate of tools and a clipboard. She surveyed the yard like a forewoman on a small but righteous mission. City says we've got 4 weeks until the neighborhood council votes on permanent zoning, she said, handing Elaine a folder. You're clear for now, but we need signage and a purpose statement. I have both, Elaine said, opening the folder to reveal laminated pages already typed and formatted. Welcome to the Foster Roots Community Garden. Free plots, educational programming, all funded and insured. Lily leaned over to peek. You already wrote the mission? Elaine handed her a copy. Want to help me revise it? You've got a better eye for tone. Lily smiled like she'd just been asked to drive the getaway car. By the 3rd week, raised beds lined the property, each labeled with names of local residents who'd asked to join Miss Calderon from down the block, a retired firefighter named Jimmy, Even a single dad and his 10-year-old who planted marigolds like they were gold. On the fourth Saturday, Miles showed up. He carried 3 canvases under one arm and a gallon of exterior sealant in the other. "I thought this wall could use something less beige," he said, nodding toward the side of the house. Elaine tilted her head. "What are you thinking?" He unwrapped the first canvas. It was a stylized rendering of hands planting seed-dark soil, golden light, a swirl of color rising toward an unseen sun. Abstract, but warm. "It's called Begin Again." Elaine ran her fingers across the canvas edge, then looked up at her son. "It's perfect." They mounted it to the wall that afternoon, sealed against weather and time. Rachel noticed on Tuesday. By Wednesday, a city inspector showed up with a clipboard and a pinched expression. Elaine met him at the gate, trowel still in hand, gloves tucked into her waistband. "Ma'am," he said, clearly not expecting to see a silver-haired woman in a garden apron and orthopedic shoes. "We received a report of unpermitted construction." Elaine gestured toward the raised beds. "This?" He looked down at his form. There was mention of excavation, electrical work, possible fencing violations. Gloria stepped out from the shed with the permit binder. "You'll find the soil test results, zoning clearance, and contractor receipts in Section 3. Page tabs are color-coded." The inspector flipped through the binder slowly. After 10 minutes and 2 phone calls, he looked up, slightly sheepish. "Well, everything checks out. Sorry for the inconvenience." Elaine smiled. "No inconvenience. We appreciate your time." As he left, Gloria muttered, "Next time we should just frame the damn paperwork." Elaine brushed her palms together. "Next time we might." Across the street, Rachel stood behind her SUV's tinted window, watching them, watching her. Elaine didn't wave. The following week, Gloria filed the official paperwork. Foster House Revival LLC, now a nonprofit, classified under Community Development and Urban Green Space Restoration. She walked into the municipal building wearing pearls and power-walking shoes, smiled at the clerk, and handed over a packet so complete it drew compliments. By Friday, they had a certificate. Elaine framed it in reclaimed wood and hung it beside Miles's mural. That night, as the last light faded, Lily sat on the garden bench beside her grandmother. "Did you ever think you'd be doing this?" she asked. Elaine looked out over the beds rows of green where Rot used to live. "I think I always wanted to. I just never believed I'd be allowed." Lily placed a hand on hers. "You didn't wait for permission this time." Elaine squeezed her hand gently. I finally didn't." From the sidewalk, Travis's car crawled by slow, deliberate, watching. Elaine didn't turn her head. The notice arrived on a Thursday morning, posted clean and straight on the front door of the house Travis had once called his. The paper fluttered slightly in the breeze, but the bold type was unmissable. "Notice to vacate 30 days. Rachel saw it first. She screamed. Elaine, back at her own kitchen counter, poured herself a cup of black tea and glanced out the window as if the wind had simply shifted. Gloria was already on speakerphone with the sheriff's office, verifying the delivery receipt. "They have until the 15th, Gloria said, "and you've met every legal requirement." Elaine stirred her tea. "Then we wait." But Lily didn't want to wait. She arrived at Elaine's doorstep that evening, backpack over one shoulder and a duffel in her hand. Her face was red from crying, but her spine was straight. Elaine opened the door and stepped aside without a word. "I told them I was moving out," Lily said once she'd crossed the threshold. "Dad said I was choosing sides. I said he'd already picked his." Elaine reached for her bag. "You'll take the guest room." "I want the one by the garden." Elaine smiled. "Even better." They unpacked together in silence. Lily placed her books neatly on the windowsill, her shoes in a line by the closet. She left her phone in her backpack. Later that night, under soft lamplight in the living room, Elaine told her about Miles. "I'm going to co-sign for a gallery space," she said, knitting a slow row. "He deserves a future that isn't leased by guilt." Lily nodded, curled under the throw blanket. "I think he's starting to believe in things again." "Good," Elaine said. "It's time one of you did." End quote. 3 nights later, Travis broke in. It was just after 11 p.m. Elaine had gone to bed early, but Gloria Never, one to trust anything to luck, had installed motion sensors at both the front and back gates. Her phone lit up before the door ever creaked open. The footage played in black and white. Travis slipping around the side of the house, hoodie pulled low, gloved hand twisting the knob. Son of a, Gloria muttered, hitting record on her phone before calling the police. By the time Elaine appeared in the hallway in her robe, flashlight in one hand, Gloria was already handing over the footage to the responding officer. He tried to say it was a family misunderstanding, Gloria said, arms crossed, like he just happened to stumble into his mother's home at midnight. The officer had reviewed the video on Gloria's phone, then looked at Travis flatly. "You forced entry," he said. "That's trespassing." Travis looked around like he'd just realized no one was coming to his defense. "I wanted to talk to her," he shouted. "She's tearing everything apart." Elaine stepped forward, steady and composed. "You're the one who let it fall apart. I just stopped catching it." The officer handed Travis a citation. "You'll be contacted by the court within 10 business days. Suggest you stay off this property." As he was escorted off the porch, Travis turned back to Elaine. "You think Lily's going to stay loyal to you after this? You think she'll choose your little garden and your dusty scrapbook life over a real family?" From behind the door, Lily stepped into view. "I already did." End quote. The courtroom was smaller this time. No marble, no fanfare. Just vinyl chairs, a folding table, and a part-time judge with a day job in real estate law. But Lily dressed like it mattered a navy blazer, her hair tied back, notes handwritten in a soft leather notebook. Elaine sat behind her. Rachel didn't show. Travis represented himself. His voice cracked when he called the situation a misunderstanding. Lily read from her notes without shaking. She listed dates, messages, voice memos, the sudden cutoff from her tuition account when she moved out, the threatening voicemails after the eviction. At one point, she looked directly at her father. "I loved you more when you weren't trying to own everything." The judge ruled in her favor, protective order granted, along with small claims compensation for damages to Elaine's door. Afterward, Lily and Elaine stood on the courthouse steps, the late sun spilling gold across the pavement. "You okay?" Elaine asked. "I think so," Lily said. "It hurt, but not like I thought it would." Elaine looped her arm through hers. "Healing always comes after pruning." A silver SUV idled across the street. Travis was behind the wheel, watching, jaw clenched. Elaine met his gaze. She didn't blink. It started with a phone call from Spencer Garrison. Elaine was trimming back basil in the garden when her cell buzzed in her apron pocket. She answered on the third ring. "I've reviewed the trust activity you flagged last month," Spencer said without preamble. "The internal audits led to something larger. Travis's company is under active investigation." Elaine didn't speak, just waited, letting the information land like rain on stone. "There's evidence," Spencer continued, "of expense fraud, commingled personal purchases on company credit, and, more concerningly, cash withdrawals through shell vendors. One of the shell accounts is in Rachel's name." Elaine set the shears down carefully on the garden bench. "How bad is it?" "The feds have it now. His accounts are frozen pending review." Elaine closed her eyes. "Thank you, Spencer. Please forward the full audit package to Daryl for safekeeping." "Yes, ma'am. I do." By Monday, the news broke inside the local business circle. Foster Financial Group under internal review. Assets temporarily frozen pending federal inquiry. The article didn't mention Travis by name, but anyone in Louisville finance knew. Clients panicked. A quiet hemorrhaging of trust. It was all very civilized, very quiet. The kind of slow bleed that leaves a man no scars, just a reputation too fragile to patch. Miles heard about it from a friend who still did contract design work for the firm. He came by that evening, dragging a six-pack and a look of guilt that aged him 5 years. "I talked to him," he said, sitting on the porch steps. "He says it's all just political. Office rival got jealous. He's spinning it like it's nothing." Elaine sipped her tea, eyes on the dusk setting in over the garden. "But you don't believe him," she said. Miles shook his head. "I don't think even he believes him anymore." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. He asked if I'd front some cash just until the hold clears. "Mom, I think he's drowning." Elaine didn't respond right away. Then, quietly, "Some debts aren't yours to carry, Miles." He nodded slowly, but it hurt. She could see that. "I hate watching him sink." Elaine looked toward the tomato vines, heavy with fruit. "So did I. For years." She stood, brushed off her hands. Let him learn how it feels not to be rescued. I'd do. 2 days later, Rachel vanished. Gloria delivered the news while unpacking a case of seed catalogs at the community garden's tools shed. She's gone, Gloria said, dropping a file on the bench beside Elaine. Packed a bag, drained the last joint account, left Travis a note that said, I warned you about paper trails. Elaine opened the file. Inside were stills from Daryl's Records 3 shell accounts traced to a Delaware P.O. box, all with Rachel's name as primary manager. The funds had been quietly moved, right before the audit froze the rest. Elaine stared at the signatures. Neat? Consistent? Rehearsed? Gloria whistled. She always did strike me as the type to start the fire and bring her own marshmallows. Elaine folded the file shut. Let her run. She was never built to stay. I'd do. That Saturday, Lily came into the kitchen with an armful of flyers from the community college downtown. Elaine looked up from her crossword. What's all that? I went to the info session you marked on the fridge. Elaine smiled. I thought you might. Lily dropped the stack of brochures onto the table, then placed one specific form in front of her. Pre-enrollment application. Accounting and ethics concentration. Elaine raised an eyebrow. You sure? Lily nodded. I want to understand how people move money, how they hide things, how to stop that from happening to other people. Elaine studied her granddaughter's face clear-eyed, calm, fierce. She slid the folder closer. Then let's get you started. They filled it out together over peanut butter toast and chamomile tea. By nightfall, it was sealed, stamped, and set beside the outgoing mail. I do. That evening, Gloria called. I just spoke with Spencer. Federal agents may be looking to file charges against Travis as early as next month. Wire fraud, tax evasion, and possibly accessory laundering if they tie Rachel in far enough. Elaine closed the notebook on her lap and stood at the window. Travis's SUV was gone from the street. Had been for days now. But Miles's truck was parked in front of his new gallery, space windows lit, life blooming. And Lily's bedroom light was still on, her music faint but steady through the drywall. Elaine exhaled. The storm had thinned. For now. The morning was still, the sky draped in soft gray, one of those Kentucky spring days that carried more memory than weather. Elaine walked alone, slow and steady, through the garden path that now ran behind the renovated duplex she'd quietly purchased in February. The trees she and Lily had planted weeks ago were beginning to take. Tiny leaf buds reached upward like fragile green promises. She paused beneath the first sycamore. Miles had carved a small copper plaque for it that read, Growth takes root in silence. Her cane tapped softly on the stone pathway as she moved past the raised beds, empty for now, waiting for new hands to find them. A robin chirped from the garden fence. The wind brushed lightly against her collarbone. It felt like breath someone else's. She wore Harold's old denim jacket, the one he'd sworn was too worn to throw away and too stiff to break in. She'd washed it once since his funeral, then stopped. His scent had faded, but the shape still held him. By late morning, she was at St. Bridget's Cemetery, standing beside the modest headstone where Harold had rested for almost 7 years. She knelt, slowly, one hand pressed to the grass. Well, she said, voice low, I did it. She looked down at the ground like he might rise to answer. I tried to be fair. I tried to be quiet, but I was tired of being buried with you. A breeze passed, brushing her cheek. She imagined him smirking in that way he did when he'd lost an argument but wouldn't admit it. I used the money, she said. All of it. Not for them, for what should have been protected a long time ago. She touched the top of the stone, her palm lingering. You always told me I was the steady one. Turns out, I'm the storm, too. I damn. That afternoon, Miles stopped by unannounced. He came through the back gate with paint on his fingertips and a long, rectangular package wrapped in brown paper under one arm. I figured it was time you had something that didn't come with a receipt, he said, setting the package on the kitchen table. Elaine unwrapped it slowly, careful not to tear the paper. The canvas was stark but tender. A solitary figure in a garden, barefoot, surrounded by half-grown trees, in her hands roots, uplifted, cracked, raw, and glowing. The title was scrawled in white at the bottom corner, Reclaiming. Elaine swallowed hard. It's not literal, Miles said, but it's true. She ran her fingers along the canvas edge. You found me in this. No, he said. You let me. I damn. 2 days later, Lily came home beaming, envelope in hand. Elaine was sorting donations for the garden library when Lily sprinted across the yard like a child half her age, breathless. I got it, she gasped. Elaine stood slowly. Got what? Lily handed her the envelope, shaking. The scholarship, $7,500 for financial literacy and ethics. I wrote about you. Elaine blinked. About me? Lily pulled out the printed essay, folded neatly. When quiet isn't weak. What my grandmother taught me about accountability. Elaine sat down hard on the bench. Lily knelt beside her, voice low. You taught me that kindness doesn't mean surrender. That being silent doesn't mean you're asleep. Elaine looked at her with a depth that reached past pride. You earned this, Lily. Don't make me the reason. You're the root of it, Lily said. I damn. That weekend, Gloria arrived with something wrapped in butcher paper. You know, she said, placing it down on Elaine's table, we never did name the foundation. Elaine unwrapped the plaque carefully. Burnished bronze, bold serif font. The Elaine Foster Community Roots Fund. Elaine stared at it for a long time. Gloria poured them both a drink. Not tea. Bourbon neat. You earned the credit, honey, she said. Don't you dare argue with me today. Elaine ran a finger over the engraved letters. I thought I was being petty, she whispered. Turns out I was being thorough. Gloria grinned. Same thing, most days. Just depends on the paperwork. Elaine looked toward the garden, then toward the horizon beyond it. Her past had stopped calling, but something else had started knocking. Elaine knew something was off the moment she saw his name. Travis Foster. Sent 8:13 a.m. Subject. Would like to talk. Just the two of us. The body of the email was short. A proposed cafe. His tone suddenly deferential. She stared at it a moment longer than she meant to. Then, without replying, she called Gloria. Am I a fool if I go? No, Gloria said. You're a fool if you don't go in ready. Elaine tucked a folded paper into her purse and made a stop at the bank before heading to the cafe. I damn. The cafe was off a frontage road near the old Interstat Neutral ground. New construction. Beige furniture. Corporate jazz piped in at just above whisper level. Travis had pick. D. The back booth. Elaine spotted him instantly. He looked older. Not dramatically just. Undone. Like a fitted suit worn one size too tight. His shirt was ironed, but his eyes were bagged. Jaw unshaven. Fingers twitching against the coffee cup like he wasn't used to stillness anymore. She slid into the seat across from him and took her time removing her gloves. You look good, Mom, he said, voice brittle. She raised an eyebrow. You look like you've been trying to convince people you're not drowning. Travis gave a dry, humorless chuckle, still straight to the gut. I learned from the best, she said, folding her hands. He nodded, looked down. I just wanted to talk. Apologize, maybe. Elaine didn't reply. I lost everything, he said, voice soft now. My career, Rachel, the house, my name. I don't even know where Lily is applying to school. You didn't ask, he swallowed. I didn't mean for it to go this far. That's the thing about damage, she said. It never means to. He fidgeted with the sugar packet beside his coffee, tore it open, didn't pour it in, just twisted the paper until it split down the seam. I know I screwed up. Elaine reached into her purse and pulled out a folded slip of paper. She smoothed it on the table between them. It was the check receipt from Lily's 16th birthday dinner, the one Elaine had written from her so-called teacher's pension. Travis stared at it, confused. You remember this? She asked. He looked up cautiously. Yeah. You handed me a bill like I was an afterthought. After a lifetime of bills, I paid without ever asking who'd ordered what. She slid the paper forward. That brunch? That was the moment I knew you didn't see me anymore. Just a balance sheet. Travis opened his mouth to speak, but Elaine cut him off. You weren't my son that day. You were a creditor. Silence thickened between them. Then, she pulled out an envelope. Inside, a check for $1, neatly written, signed. No memo line. She laid it in front of him. He stared. What's this? My counteroffer. To what? To your apology. That's what your loyalty was worth to me. $1. His lips parted, stunned. You think this is funny? No, she said. But I do think it's fair. He stared at the check like it might burst into flames. I came here in good faith, he said, voice sharp. No, Elaine said calmly, standing. You came here hoping I'd still be the same woman who used to bail you out. She pulled on her gloves, picked up her purse. But she doesn't live here anymore. He pushed the check aside like it offended him. You'll regret this. Eventually. Elaine paused, leaned in just slightly. I already regret trusting you this long. Then she turned, heels silent on the linoleum, and walked out into the bright, sharp Kentucky afternoon. Behind her, Travis stayed seated, staring at the dollar, his hands no longer twitching, just still. The old house looked different now, emptier somehow, even stripped of furniture. Echoes of birthdays and arguments still clung to the walls like old wallpaper, but Elaine walked through it with clean steps. She paused in the foyer, sunlight slicing across the wood floor. The same spot where Lily used to twirl in holiday dresses. The same threshold Travis had stormed across when he thought his anger had weight. Now, it was hers. Legally. Completely. And it would be the last time anyone in this family used it to hoard power. She stood in the middle of the living room and addressed the small group gathered: Gloria, Miles, Lily, and 2 contractors holding clipboards and coffee. I want the kitchen gutted, Elaine said. We'll turn it into a reception space. The upstairs bedrooms become offices. Counseling, grant prep, FAFSA workshops, you name it. One of the contractors whistled. Big job. Elaine smiled. It's a bigger purpose. Lily looked around the space, eyes wide. You're really doing it. Elaine turned to her. Not just me. I filed the board documents last week. You're listed as co-director. Lily blinked. Me? You understand the system. And you care about the people who get caught under it. That's rare. Gloria clapped her hands. Well, I brought muffins, so this is officially a staff meeting now. On. The news hit the following week. Louisville woman indicted for tax fraud. Offshore evasion. A familiar headshot. Rachel smiling in the way only liars smile when they think the flash won't catch them. Elaine sat at the garden table with her tea, scrolling through the article. Details spilled like breadcrumbs, the offshore holdings, the forged reporting, the fabricated shell vendors tied to her name. She didn't forward it to Travis. There was no point. That morning, Elaine also received confirmation from Darryl. The final trust amendment had been notarized and accepted. Travis Foster was now and permanently excluded from all oversight, distribution, or future claim to the family fund. No contest clause. Irrevocable. Elaine filed it quietly in the back of her cabinet and labeled it Peace of Mind. Idaho. 3 weeks later, Miles stood in the center of his first solo gallery show. The room buzzed, wine glasses clinked, soft jazz floated through overhead speakers, and guests lingered long in front of his work, whispering words like soulful and electric. Elaine arrived early. She didn't like grand entrances. The piece she stopped in front of was called Inheritance. It was layered with color, a house crumbling into a field of wildflowers, roots exploding from beneath the foundation, not tearing it down, but raising it up. Don't you dare say it's too expensive, Miles said behind her. Elaine turned. I wasn't going to. It's already sold, he grinned. Foster House Revival bought it for the new financial center's entryway. Elaine blinked. You sneaky little. You gave me the light, he said. I just painted the room. Idaho. That weekend, Elaine was led to a seat near the front of the event hall for the Women's Civic Advancement Awards. She thought it would be a quick segment, a handshake, a certificate. But the keynote speaker started with her name. Elaine Foster, the woman said, voice clear and warm. Not just a teacher, not just a mother, but a builder. A woman who taught us that sometimes the sharpest kind of power is the kind that blooms slowly, quietly, and irrevocably. Applause. A standing ovation. Elaine blinked, stunned. Then Gloria tugged her elbow. You heard the woman. Get your flowers. Elaine rose, walked to the stage, and accepted the plaque Lifetime Civic Impact, Elaine Foster. She turned to the crowd and spoke only one sentence. I wasn't trying to make noise. I was trying to be heard. Lily and Miles were in the front row, both standing. Idaho. Later that night, in the quiet of her kitchen, Elaine poured herself a glass of wine and looked at the family photo still taped inside a cabinet door from a different life, where people smiled for cameras but not each other. She didn't take it down, but she did pin something beside it: Lily's scholarship letter. A knock came at the front door. Elaine walked slowly to open it. Outside, a man in a pressed shirt stood with a sealed envelope. "Mrs. Foster? You've been named in a federal advisory panel request. They'd like you to consult on national community development programs." Elaine tilted her head. "Is there pay?" "Yes, ma'am. And a travel stipend." Elaine opened the door wider. "Then I suppose I've got one more garden to grow." It aired on a Sunday night prime slot, just after the national news but before anything too glossy could wash it away. The title card faded in over a soft piano score. "The woman who played the lottery and won back her life." Elaine didn't say anything. She just sat in her armchair, slippers on, mug in hand, the tea long cooled but untouched. The only other light in the room came from the television screen and the low hum of the dishwasher cycling in the kitchen. Lily's voice began, steady but cracked at the edges. "My grandmother never raised her voice. That's the first thing people get wrong." On screen, B-roll rolled of the community garden hands in soil, children laughing beside sunflower stalks taller than they were. Then shots of the old foster house, now the financial aid center, its porch painted a soft, deliberate green. Lily's voice continued, this time over archival photos. Elaine as a young teacher, holding infant Miles in a rocking chair, standing beside Harold, squinting into the sun, proud and tired. She taught math, but what she really taught was how to carry yourself without letting anyone carry your worth away. Elaine breathed in, shallow and slow. The camera cut to Lily being interviewed, hair pinned back, blouse buttoned high. Her mascara had smudged slightly, but she didn't look away from the lens. "I didn't understand what she was doing at first," Lily admitted, her voice trembling. "I just knew that when she started planting things, the ground started holding us better." The footage shifted shots of Miles hanging the mural, Gloria handing out seed packets at a block event, neighbors waving from porches that hadn't seen paint in years. Then it returned to Elaine. Archival news clips. A blurred silhouette of Travis entering a courtroom. Rachel's photo, watermark labeled, indicted. But the story didn't linger there. The pain was acknowledged, then cleared like storm clouds receding. The focus came back to the green things growing, back to Elaine. "I don't." Gloria arrived halfway through the broadcast, knocking once before, letting herself in, carrying a plastic tub of lemon bars and a chilled bottle of sparkling cider. Elaine didn't pause the television. Gloria poured 2 glasses and handed one over as Lily's narration picked up again. "She didn't ask to be celebrated. She asked to be taken seriously." They clinked their glasses gently. "She wanted us to understand that redemption isn't owed. It's built, brick by brick, decision by decision." The camera lingered on a close-up of Elaine in the garden, pulling weeds with her sleeves rolled up. Not knowing she was being filmed, Gloria beamed. They made them look again. Elaine didn't speak, just swallowed slowly, heart full and oddly calm. "Oh, The credits rolled with soft acoustic guitar. Interviews with neighbors. A little boy who said, "Miss Foster taught me about worms." A retired woman planting a fig tree. Someone crying softly off camera. As the screen faded to black, Gloria turned off the television with the remote. "You okay?" she asked. Elaine nodded. "I think so." They sat in silence for a beat. Then Gloria grinned. "You're officially too good for bingo night now, you know." Elaine cracked a smile. "I'll try not to let it go to my head." The next morning, Miles called. "They sold," he said. No hello. The 3 pieces that didn't move at the show. Gone. All full price. Elaine smiled into her coffee. "Someone finally saw what you buried in them." Miles exhaled. "I think I did too." She didn't need to say more. Neither did he. The call ended with warmth tucked into the pause, not words. That same afternoon, a manila envelope arrived by courier sender listed. Inside was a typed receipt and a handwritten note from Daryl. Donation successfully processed. Beneficiary, Louisville Adult Literacy Alliance. Amount, $25,000. Donor, anonymous, per client instructions. Elaine folded the letter once and slid it into a small box on her bookshelf labeled Finished Deeds. She didn't tell Gloria. She didn't tell Lily. She just filed it under the same quiet certainty that had shaped her life. That evening, as dusk fell across the garden, Elaine stepped outside. The sycamore leaves whispered softly overhead. A teenager in a hoodie was helping a younger girl dig holes for new seedlings. Neither of them noticed Elaine. She watched them quietly for a moment, then turned toward the community shed to restock gloves. And just as she reached the door, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A name lit the screen she hadn't seen in months. Travis Foster. She didn't answer, but she didn't delete it either. The garden never looked more alive. Dusk wove itself gently through the sycamores, casting soft lavender shadows over the communal tables pulled together under strung lights. Mason jars flickered with tea candles. Plates clinked. Laughter spilled as easily as the lemonade. Elaine stood by the grill, turning corn husks with tongs, her apron dusted in flour and charcoal. Lily moved between tables with a pitcher of sweet tea, accepting compliments like they were handshakes. "You didn't have to do all this," Miss Calderon said, settling into a lawn chair with a paper plate piled high. "You could have just cashed out and disappeared." Elaine wiped her hands on a dish towel. "And missed the part where we all get full together?" A retired postal worker raised a glass to Elaine Foster, who turned dirt into dignity. More glasses followed. Someone whistled. Someone else yelled, "And the tomatoes don't taste like despair anymore." The laughter was real, root deep, and Elaine for once didn't deflect it. She just let it land. Later, as the stars blinked awake overhead, Lily found her grandmother sitting on the porch swing, a paper plate balanced on one knee, cobbler nearly finished. She sat beside her, slipping off her shoes and pulling her legs up. Tonight felt like. Lily trailed off. "A second draft," Elaine said softly, "of the life we were supposed to have." Lily turned her head. "Do you ever regret not telling them sooner? About the ticket? About any of it?" Elaine took a slow sip of mint tea, the ice long melted. "They would have called it luck," she said. "Treated it like a glitch in the system, like I didn't earn the right to use it how I did." She smiled then, not unkindly. "Let them think it was random. They never understood the odds." Lily rested her head on her shoulder. "They still don't." Across the garden, Miles helped a neighbor hang a new wind kimia gift from the community art class he'd started with leftover mural supplies. Gloria waved a spatula at a toddler trying to run off with an uncut pie. Somewhere, a dog barked at the moon. Elaine looked around the yard at the raised beds and repurposed sheds, the recycled benches and painted signs, the mural that had become a kind of landmark. It wasn't perfect. It was better. She reached for the bottle of cider on the table beside her and raised it. "To second chances," she said. "And quiet victories." Everyone within earshot echoed the toast, a soft chorus, a garden in full bloom. Long after the guests had left and the dishes were stacked in the sink, Elaine walked through the house barefoot, lights off, letting her memory guide her. She paused in the hallway by the cabinet door where the old family photos still hung: Harold, Miles, Travis, herself. A frozen moment that didn't tell the whole story. It never had. Next to it, Lily's scholarship letter. And above that, recently pinned, a laminated flyer. Foster Roots Financial Empowerment Center free workshops. Real help. Elaine stood in front of it all for a long moment. Then she whispered to no one. "They laughed at my numbers." She stepped outside into the cool night, letting the door swing shut behind her. The porch light flicked on as if summoned. Elaine smiled. "I gave them one they'll never forget." She looked down the street, past the garden, past the glow of new life blooming from old mistakes. "The address I now own again.